I was just what's up, everybody? Perfect time to podcast back with the blast. Simulcasting live on 3 channels right now. What's up, everybody? Hey, what's up, gang? We back in the building. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody out there. How's everybody doing? Welcome in. One time. Welcome in, welcome. Black Conservative Speaks podcast radio in the building right now. Let's check the audio, man. How's everybody doing right now, man? Let's check the audio one time, because I got my brand up. Check, mic check one time. Yeah, the audio looking good, sounding good. So how is everybody doing this afternoon? Man, fire show on the Roger Report this morning. Just ended the fire podcast, man. It's still going right now. I think Roger letting it go to about 5 hours, man, because there's so much heat, so much hotness. You know what I'm saying? When the fire burns so hot, 4 alarm fire, man. You know what I'm saying? Hot like fire. 30 years for R. Kelly, man. That was so messed up, man. Go watch my video I put up yesterday, man. 30 years, man. You know I said yesterday that Aaliyah mama and them own R. Kelly masters. Like I said in the video yesterday, Aaliyah mama sold her daughter to R. Kelly. You know what I'm saying? R. Kelly didn't commit no crimes. This case yesterday, was about the same case 20 years ago. The reason they used racketeering is so they could retry R. Kelly and violate his constitutional rights. That's the only reason that they use racketeering. And it's so fitting that we are discussing something like that when today is about our good brother who we got on the screen today, and that is do I got some okay, I'm looking good. I was just eating my cereal, man. I had a couple minutes. I jumped off the Roger Report. I need a hair tie. Oh, I do got a hair tie. My daughter be taking my hair tie. I was just on the Roger Report and I jumped off to get ready, and I was like, I'm gonna eat after my live stream, but I'm like, no, I'm starving. Because the Roger show went longer than it typically goes, so I'm starving. So I had to go eat my cereal, man. Yesterday I made some oatmeal. I haven't made oatmeal in a long time. My wife was like, "You made your oatmeal." I made my famous oatmeal yesterday. That shit was bomb. Black Conservative Speaks, man. You know what I'm saying? Stock up on all that, man. They had a 50-pound bag of oatmeal, 50-pound bag of rice. Black Uru just was talking about 50-pound bag of beans. Get you 100 pounds of beans. Get you 100 pounds of rice. Get you 100 pounds of rolled oats. You know what I'm saying? And you can replant the lettuce. When you buy your lettuce, you got the little bit left, put that outside in the dirt. When your green onions, you got a little bit left, put that outside in the dirt. The onions that you got, put that outside in the dirt. I know it might sound far-fetched, but listen to me, anybody listening on live and on replay, this is what you want to do. Get you 100 pounds of rice. And I know it might be like a perfect time to say get 100 pounds of rice. 100 pounds, man. Yeah, because they sell the bags like at Smart Final or whatever warehouse grocery store that you have. If you got Costco, Vons, I don't know. I don't got a Kroger and shit like that out here. So I don't know if Kroger sell the big bulk of rice and beans, but find a warehouse store and get you 2 bags of them 50-pound bags of beans, get you 2 bags of 50-pound bags of rice, get you a 25-pound bag of rolled oats. You know what I'm saying? Stock that up, man, because this is Black Conservative Speaks. So I think that's a good way to start the podcast, is telling people to prep. Some people are stocking gas. In the Bay Area, I don't know about you right now, but they keep it like I talked about yesterday. This Black Conservative Speaks radio and podcast. Go ahead and share the show. I'm just getting started right now. You know what I'm saying? I haven't even shared the show myself, man. You know what I'm saying? I tell you guys to share the show all the time. But right now in California, I'm in Northern California. San Francisco Bay Area, and Los Angeles, you got gas anywhere from $7 to $8. This is on topic. This is Black Conservative Speaks Radio. I'm gonna keep saying it over and over again because I like that name. I can't believe no one has come up with the name. So Angry Man got the street conservative, and you know the street conservative is gonna come back because we got this midterm election in the red wave that I've been talking about. So as I talked about more of the midterm election and some of these court cases and some of the black politics, cool table politics, something came to me and I said, you know what? Black Conservative Speaks Radio, man. Black Conservative Speaks podcast, because I want to revisit the last show that we did about conservatism versus liberalism, right? Liberal versus conservative, right? And have liberal policies killed the black family, black community, and black love? We basically answered that last time, but now on today's show, what I want to go do is go in depth with a good brother, Clarence Thomas, man. A great brother, Clarence Thomas, man. So I got an in-depth interview we're gonna watch. The interview is a little bit long, the podcast game, can vary. Sometimes, the podcast was a long, lengthy amount of time. Sometimes the podcast is a short amount of time. Today, we're going to take a little bit of your time today, and I pray you guys having a great day, and I pray you guys are blessed, and I pray you guys rock with me, you know what I'm saying? So, I pray a covering over everybody who will come into the chat. Lord, please divinely inspire our message and keep us blessed and keep us on task. Bless all those listening. I ask all these blessings in your name. Amen. Yo, we truly blessed to be here another day, man. We could be anywhere right now. You know what I mean? That means so much to me. My mother passed, and I used to hear that in church every Sunday morning. And I'm gonna play an interview. I'm gonna play an interview with Clarence Thomas. I'm gonna play an interview with Clarence Thomas and he's gonna talk about his book and a lot of things you might not know that I've studied this brother. And a lot of things you might not know about him because how powerful the social media propaganda is. As you listen to this interview and you learn more about Clarence Thomas, and I'm so proud that God has placed this upon my heart to do this because I want black men in the black manosphere to have this reference, right? And I don't know if black men in the manosphere do, because when we discuss Roe versus Wade, as I prayed and I meditated this morning about how I would approach this subject matter, this is what was blessed, and this is what was placed upon me. In my heart and mind, black men are the best, right? Think about what I'm saying. Black men are the best. There's been a discussion of black culture. There was a very ignoramus debate. Brother Sanchez and Taz sounding like two idiots, and they had a very ignorant debate, and neither one of them stayed on topic about black culture. And the debate was supposed to be as a black is black akin to dead. Neither one of them stayed on topic. Neither one of them went to any of the Moorish science temple principles and the individuals who actually said that black is akin to death. So none of them, because they have their own sensitive, ideas about issues and things that they want to project. So the debate was a fucking embarrassment, right? But so there's been discussions about black culture a lot lately in the black manosphere, and about black men, about black women, about black families, right? So as I thought about today's show, right? As I thought about today's show and my vantage point on how I would approach today's show, I said to myself, black men are the best. Black men are the best. Now think about why a lot of people have discussed slavery, right? And whether you believe in slavery or not, this is what I'm going to propose, right? When I say black men are the best, right? Um, I would say at that time, and you could disagree with me, but the European could have enslaved anyone at that time, right? But people think, I don't know what people think, right? But there's this assumption that that they enslaved the African black because it was easy, right? And I don't think anything about our history would suggest that enslaving the African black was easy, right? But there had to be a reason, right? Because they could have enslaved any other people, right? Because they think about the empire that they had, right? We're talking about the British Empire. We're talking about the what's that called? The tea company, the Indian Tea Company, right? We're talking about the most powerful empire in the world, right? So they chose to enslave blacks. I believe they chose to enslave black men because black men are the greatest. We are the greatest specimen of men on the planet. They knew of our genius. They knew of like our genius is not just evident in sports and athletics, right? When we talk about the best doctor, right? When I say black men are the best, I mean when I go back to Johnny Cochran's doctor, and Johnny Cochran's doctor was the best doctor on the planet, a brain surgeon. Dr. Sanjay Gupta from CNN yielded to Johnny Cochran's brain surgery. I work in the medical field. I hold Dr. Sanjay Gupta very highly. I did before this last past year, right? But at the time, I held Dr. Sanjay Gupta very highly, right? And he would bow to Johnny Cochran's brain surgeon as the best doctor on the planet Earth. So our genius is not reserved to sports and entertainment. It's not just Michael Jackson. It's not just Michael Jordan. But you see that same genius exhibited in every aspect of life here on the planet Earth. Right? You have a black man now who's invented a machine to create water out of air because God put upon him, because we are the gods of the earth, that we're going to need water. Did you see that video? A black man invented a machine to make water out of air, out of nothing. It makes good, clean, drinkable water out of nothing. Just an everyday brother. That's what we have in us. When we say the black man is God, that's what we have in us. So when I meditated and I prayed on how to come at this topic today, he said, you are God, you are the greatest at everything. Perfect. You are perfect at anything and everything you put your mind to. So when we talk about Clarence Thomas and how powerful social media and media is, and how social media with surviving R. Kelly got R. Kelly the RICO Act in 30 years, and that white woman got less time when she actually had a criminal organization. I want you to understand how powerful social media and propaganda is, that we think we know who Clarence Thomas is. We think they want to get rid of Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas should run for president. If you're looking at me and we're talking about a power paradigm, Colin Powell never got to run for president. For the same reason, Clarence Thomas is not being talked about to run for president, because Colin Powell, because of propaganda, was told to you he's not the right type of black man because he worked for Bush. But Colin Powell came from nothing and made something out of nothing. One of the greatest human beings and most powerful human beings on the planet. That was Colin Powell. He never was talked about for president because of this propaganda. Again, Clarence Thomas, one of the greatest litigious lawyers and judges ever, besides the other black Supreme Court justice, and I'll forget his name. I apologize for getting his name. Y'all put his name in the chat. But the reason we have Roe versus Wade overturned is because Clarence Thomas is the greatest Supreme Court justice to ever live and to ever serve on the court. Do you think Clarence Thomas is going to get his props? On top of that, and this is what we don't even have to include it, right? We don't have to include it, but on top of being the greatest Supreme Court justice ever, he's black. He's black, and he grew up during American apartheid. He went through civil rights. Think about what I'm saying about this man, and we don't hold him up and revere him. Black Conservative Speaks, Black Conservative Speaks podcast radio. How could we not hold up Clarence Thomas? But now he gonna get his flowers today, because what was said about his concurring opinion, because if the Chief Justice, you ought to understand, Clarence Thomas is not the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice, John Roberts, did not want to overturn Roe versus Wade. He was forced to vote to overturn Roe versus Wade because Clarence Thomas' concurrent opinion was so compelling that it could not be argued. He is the greatest Supreme Court justice to ever live. He overturned Roe versus Wade. It's not just conjecture. It's like Michael Jordan. It's like Michael Jackson. There's no discussion who's the greatest entertainer, greatest singer to ever live. Michael Jackson. The black man is God. The black man is the greatest. There is no question who is the greatest sports. You got Jesse Owens. You got Mike Tyson. You got Michael Jordan. You got Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Barry Bonds. It doesn't, our genius is not limited to our physical attributes. If it's one thing you take away from this podcast and Black Conservative Speaks, is that the black man's genius is not limited to our physical attributes. Yeah, I'm cooking today. Yeah, I'm cooking today because I'm inspired, bro. I'm inspired by my own ignorance. I'm inspired by my own ignorance and how powerful the media propaganda was because I had an ill opinion of Clarence Thomas. I thought I thought Clarence Thomas was a bad person. I had an ill opinion of Clarence Thomas, but I was wrong. I was wrong. And now Clarence Thomas is being proven to be the greatest and the God that he is, despite your opinions, despite his white wife, despite his conservative ideals, right? The facts are on the ground. His opinion is the reason Roe versus Wade is overturned. That's why he's trending. That's why everybody is discussing him. In case you didn't know, you cannot discuss Roe versus Wade being overturned. You cannot discuss California and New York gun rights without discussing Clarence Thomas. Supreme Court is one of the highest courts, one of the highest positions. You hold power. You're in power longer than the president and longer than the senator. Let's talk about Clarence Thomas. Let's talk about this shit. You in power longer than the president and you in power longer than the senator. Clarence Thomas and people on the Supreme Court sit until they die. They are like the kings and queens of this American republic. And Clarence Thomas, without being a Chief Justice, just overturned one of the most influential decisions in rights and laws in the country. He will be forever etched in history because of his opinion that we're going to read today. Clarence Thomas put himself as a god. With this opinion, with this ruling, with this decision, Clarence Thomas is a Michael Jordan. Clarence Thomas is a Michael Jackson. What's the Thurgood Marshall? That's the other guy, Thurgood Marshall. And those are big shoes to fill. Those are big shoes to fill. Clarence Thomas gonna get his flowers and his props here today. What I'm gonna do today on the Black Conservative Speaks is I'm gonna read the concurring opinion that Clarence Thomas wrote to get Roe versus Wade overturned. But before I do that, I'm gonna show a video, and this is a long video. Fair use is in play. This is a reaction channel. I do live reaction to videos and commentary. So we're gonna pause the video, we're gonna make comments. But I'm so blessed to have found these two things, brothers and sisters, and family watching. I'm so blessed to have found these two things. It was very difficult to find a concurrent opinion. I found a concurrent opinion, but also in my research, I found this interview to illuminate who Clarence Thomas is. Because, brothers, I know people regard me as being intelligent. I know people regard me as having perspective. And so if I was dismayed by social media, if I was confused by social media, then how many other people have been lied to and disillusioned by social media on who Clarence Thomas is as an individual, as a black man, as a conservative, as a Supreme Court justice? Do we really know? How do we care? Have we cared? And that's me. I'm talking about myself. I'm not pointing a finger like a lot of black men do in this space. I'm talking about myself, and that's how I got here today, you guys. I got here today from a point of ignorance. Today was inspired by my ignorance and how I thought I knew who Clarence Thomas was. Well, I'll tell you, I was pleasantly surprised When I researched his book, his autobiography, I learned his genesis. I learned his perspective on civil rights. I learned about who raised him, how he was raised, and what he accomplished as a black man in America in the time that he accomplished it. We can't take away from the fact that Clarence Thomas made it to the highest court in the land during American apartheid. He lived through civil rights, and yet and still he made it during this time, appointed by a white Republican, supposedly racist president. Think about that. Clarence Thomas, black man from the rural South, made it to the highest court in the land during American apartheid, appointed by a Republican president who they taught you is racist. They told you that the Republican president that who appointed this man, who is the reason why we got Roe versus Wade overturned, is racist. How is he racist if he appointed Clarence Thomas? Without Clarence Thomas, everybody is saying Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, Merrick Garland. Everybody will tell you that we have Roe versus Wade because of Mitch McConnell. We don't have Roe versus Wade because of Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell did not write the concurring opinion. Mitch McConnell is not a Supreme Court justice. Mitch McConnell did not become a Supreme Court justice as a black man during American apartheid, during civil rights, during racism. He still made it to the Supreme Court justice. He wrote the concurring opinion that was so effective in his argument that the Chief Justice John Roberts, who said he would never overturn Roe versus Wade, had to vote. Mitch McConnell doesn't get this victory. If it's up to the black manosphere, if it's up to the black manosphere, Mitch McConnell does not get this victory. And that's why I've created Black Conservative Speaks Podcast Radio. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe, share the show right now. This is Black Conservative Speaks Radio. My name is Perfect Time Podcast. Mitch McConnell will not get this victory. Mitch McConnell did not write the concurring opinion. Clarence Thomas did. In your barbershop debates, when other conservatives who have a self-loathing in them, because Black Conservative Speaks is also going to speak to those self-loathing Black conservatives who may want to argue and say, no, Mitch McConnell, and if Mitch McConnell didn't do this, and blah, 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 this and that. That's self-loathing. Mitch McConnell gets no responsibility for this. It could not be done without the compelling opinion of Clarence Thomas, and that's from the Chief Justice. It don't matter who else was on the. It does. We have the most women, and they did not. And they dissented. It doesn't matter who else is on the panel, on the court. We're here today because of the effective arguments of the greatest Supreme Court justice to ever live, Clarence Thomas, a black man. And people are reluctant to give black men their props and their flowers. We are the greatest. Our genius is not unique to our physical attributes. Our genius is not only in our physical attributes. Our genius is not reserved only for our physical attributes. You can find our genius in every aspect of American life. A black man just invented a machine that makes water from nothing, out of the clean air. It's almost like a joke from the 70s. Boy, you want some food? You want me to make McDonald's out of thin air? Yeah, mama. A man just invented a machine that makes water out of thin air. Y'all remember that term, thin air? Huh, boy, you want some Jordans? You want me to make you some Jordans out of thin air? Yeah, mama. A black man just invented a machine that makes water out of thin air. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about today, man. I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up, man. So let's get to this interview, man. Let's get to this interview. Let's get to this interview. And then after we do the interview, we're going to get the Roe versus Wade. And we're going to get to the concurring opinion. Fair use. Fair use. This is a conversation. This is a conversation with Clarence Thomas. This is a conversation with Clarence Thomas. Now, again, why am I showing this? because of my own ignorance. I thought I knew who Clarence Thomas was. They told me Clarence Thomas was an Uncle Tom. They told me Clarence Thomas was a bad person. They told me Clarence Thomas was a bad black man. On Twitter right now, they're trying to convince you to get Clarence Thomas kicked off the Supreme Court. I was ashamed of myself when I did my research and I found out the actual person. Think about that. Black men are never humanized. I was ashamed of myself when I found out about the actual person. Why had I never humanized Clarence Thomas? Why have we never humanized R. Kelly? We just watched Surviving R. Kelly and we listened, but every time R. Kelly came and spoke and he was emotional, everyone laughed. When R. Kelly became emotional in the Gayle King interview, we thought that was funny. We thought that was funny. How many of us truly have intimately cared about knowing R. Kelly to care about whether or not he's truly guilty? How many of us truly have learned who Clarence Thomas is to understand why he wrote the opinion? Do you understand what an opinion is? That's why this show is so important. That's why I'm going to show you this interview first so that we can truly, as black men, because I don't think we know who Clarence Thomas is. And this is about knowing ourselves. This is about a reflection of ourselves, because that's what it is for me, that we are the greatest at whatever we put our mind to. I don't think we really know who Clarence Thomas is, because to look at Clarence Thomas and to see him for his greatness is to see yourself for your greatness. To say we disagree with the propaganda that everybody says that Clarence Thomas has to be a bad person, that's the true essence of the black manosphere. Everybody wants to say no matter what we accomplish, we said a joke the other day, even if I build a rocket ship to the moon, I'm not worth shit. Even if I become Supreme Court Justice, even if I become Supreme Court Justice during American apartheid, civil rights, I'm still not shit. Just because a black woman said I potentially was attracted to her, throw me away, throw the whole man away. Think about what happened to Clarence Thomas. It's the same thing as R. Kelly. It's the same thing as Bill Cosby. Throw the whole black man away, despite what you're going to hear in this next interview. Despite everything you're about to learn, that YouTube and Black Manosphere have never heard what you're about to hear. The black people don't know Clarence Thomas, despite his autobiography. I don't know how many people have read it, but now you're going to hear it from the horse's mouth. Black people don't know Clarence Thomas, but you've made a decision about him based on what white media has taught you. I made a decision about him. I made a decision about him based on what white media taught me. So today, we're going to go deeper. Black Conservative Speaks Radio, Black Conservative Speaks Podcast. My name is Perfect, simulcasting live on 3 channels. Facebook Live, Patrick Potter is the name. If you're looking for me on Facebook, the name is Patrick Potter. Again, Patrick Potter, P-A-T, Patrick. I don't know how to spell Patrick Potter, P-O-D-D-E-R. I'm on YouTube on 2 different channels, Perfect Timing Podcast. I'm also live on Perfect Timing Podcast Live. You can see me every morning on the Roger Report. Check me out on the replay on Roger Report Live. That's my brother. Thank you for sharing the show, brother, yesterday. And thank you for allowing me on the panel to give up my opinions. The Black Manosphere is moving in a great and progressive way. Please pay attention. And today we're going to add another brick to the house that the Black Manosphere built. Let's get into this interview. I know you're going to entertain. I know you're going to enjoy it. This is true edutainment. While we watch the video, I'm going to share the video. I'm going to ask you to like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to get a poll up as we watch the video. And thank you for subscribing and checking us out. This is Black Conservative Speaks Radio. This is Black Conservative Speaks Podcast. My name is Perfect. I'm your host. Thank you for watching. And this is a conversation with Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice and overall great black man.
Justice, you start out the book when you're 9 years old. Why is that the place to start your autobiography?
You know, I had the manuscript to that, and Terry Teachout, who was my final editor, was just a phenomenal human being and editor and musician, and he understood. He dug deep into the manuscript, and he said, you know, you have a great title. I had picked out the title to My Grandfather's Son. And he said, but you have to explain the title within the first page or two. And he said, I found the explanation buried in your manuscript. And the line is, I was 9 years old when I met my father. And he said that most people wouldn't think of that, because ultimately my grandfather is my father. So I'm my grandfather's son, not my father's son. So that was my first encounter that I remember with my father. And so that's why I started it out there, to explain why I was my grandfather's son.
Life didn't start out too easy. You mentioned in the book that you grew up in Pinpoint, and then when you're in a home which didn't have water, it didn't have electricity. When the house burned down, you moved to Savannah and conditions got worse. I think you write that in the winter of 1995, you remember being hungry.
1955.
1955.
Yeah, boy, I was doing fine in 1995.
1955, you were hungry without knowing when you would eat, and cold without knowing when you would be warm.
That's a horrible feeling. But you know, today I just get worn down. I was with a young woman who happened to be black in Kansas recently, and she said something really interesting. She said, I'm really tired of having to play the role of being black. I just want to go to school. And I think at some point, we're going to be fatigued with everybody being a victim. When I was a kid, there were tons of people who were in really bad circumstances. My grandfather would not let us wallow in that. And as you could tell throughout this book, he's my hero. He is the single greatest human being I've ever met, with 9 months of education. But he never saw himself as a victim. He used to say that he was a motherless child. He never knew his father. His mother died when he was 7 or 8 years old. Of course, they didn't have birth certificates then, so he never knew quite how old he was. And then he was raised by his grandmother, who was a freed slave. Then she dies. And then he lives with an uncle who has 12 or 13 kids and who was a hard man. And yet he never complained. And he always said, he would have this saying when you'd want to whine or something. He said, you know, you have to play the hand you're dealt. He'd always said, in those days, blacks played bid whist a lot. And he'd say, you always have to play the hand you're dealt. If you're dealt a bad hand, you still have to play it. And when we would whine about things, if you look at the bust in my office that my wonderful wife had made for me when I went on the court, his favorite quote was, old man Kant is dead, I helped bury him. That is what I grew up with. That was I don't know if you saw the movie The Help. That's my family. We were the help. My mother made $10 a week, $5 more if you had car fare. Miss Mariah was a maid. My mother was a maid. My grandmother had been a maid. Miss Beck was a maid. Cousin B was a maid. Cousin Dosha was a maid. You see what I'm saying? Everybody, all of them were maids. And they were the help. And yet they never, ever complained. And life was hard. I mean, the things that we consider hard today. I had some college students ask me a few years back, how would I explain, talk to them now that the economy had taken a downturn? And I said, and I'm looking at them, and I said, how many of you don't have cell phones? Of course, they all had cell phones. How many of you don't have a computer? They all had computers. how many of you don't have a car? I think all but one had a car. I said, you're so far above the poverty line. And when I was in school, you were at the poverty line. You're making like 90 cents an hour. You had no money. You had no shoes or any, you had like boots and things like that. And you didn't worry about it because virtually everybody was there. And so when the economy took a downturn, when you're on the floor, isn't a whole lot further you can go. And for them, they're losing from up here to maybe midway down. So I really had no connection with them. But my further point, I didn't have a radio. I didn't have a telephone.
You guys understand, this is why I'm showing the video. Because I don't know how many people know his origin story. I didn't know his origin story. I judged him. Please vote in the poll. Shout out to Pastor. Shout out to Tracy. Shout out to I'm Listening. Thank you, everybody watching. I'm showing this because I myself was ignorant to who Clarence Thomas was. I had an opinion of Clarence Thomas, just like a lot of people who don't know R. Kelly, don't know Bill Cosby, have opinions of these men and have made judgments of these men based on propaganda from the white media. I was so shocked and awed when I finally did my research on Clarence Thomas to find out his age, his origin story. He said, I did not meet my father until I was 9 years old. I did not meet my father until I was 9 years old. He just explained how he couldn't relate to white children in college because they all had cell phones. He did not have a radio. All of his family were servants. They were the help. A servant, son, grandson of slaves, became a Supreme Court justice and just wrote the deciding opinion on one of the greatest decisions in American history. We're doing this story today because black men never get their flowers, never get their roses. Mitch McConnell does not get responsibility on this channel for Roe versus Wade being overturned. Roe versus Wade was overturned because of the concurring opinion written by Clarence Thomas, the greatest Supreme Court justice to ever live beyond Thurgood Marshall. And this is his genesis and origin story. In case you didn't know who he is and why he wrote the opinion that he wrote, we show in this video today, Black Manosphere. This is what the Black Manosphere is about.
And they're complaining, and I certainly didn't have a car, but it wasn't a problem because you had your dreams, you had your energy, you had more than the people you grew up around. I grew up around a world of total illiteracy. That's the beauty. I'm in the Library of Congress. Total illiteracy. But the thing that they had was this hope that the next generation would learn how to read. They knew how important it was for me. So my grandfather wouldn't let me I was a really good athlete too. I don't like to say that because then people want you to kind of show that you were a great athlete. And it's kind of too late in the day now. But he would not give us time off to play sports. We worked on the oil truck or on the farm. But if it had to do with the library, you could do it. So at night, he would let me go to the Carnegie Library, where I'd started going in the summer of 1955 for the noble reason that summer 55, I was 7 years old. And we just moved into this little tenement on the east side. And on Saturday, they gave you cookies and juice. So I went for the very high-minded reason of getting cookie and juice. And when you live in these neighborhoods, cookies and juice are a real treat. Along the way, they introduce you to Dr. Seuss. And if I hear "See Spot Run" one more time, but it was over. It was wonderful. And you got cookies and juice. But it gave me this image of the library as this place to learn. And it became a haven. So I walk in here. I said, look where I am. I come from this world of illiteracy, place where they treasured learning, and I get to be in a place of learning with all the books and all the people who are literate. So that's a long way of saying I was very fortunate to grow up around people who saw beyond their circumstances and who refused to be limited by those circumstances or to wallow in the sort of victim status of their circumstances.
Tell me more about your grandfather. He was a very strict man. Was he unfair?
Oh God, no. And people said, they ask sometimes about the nuns and my grandfather, did you, because in those days you had corporal punishment. And they said, well, did you get like beatings? I said, yeah, but not as many as I deserved. And my grandfather, whenever he gave you one that he found out was unfair, that you didn't deserve it at that time, he said, well, that's for what you got away with. And then you couldn't, what do you say? Because you knew you got away with stuff. And every one of us knew, oh boy, I'm glad he didn't get me on that one. But no, my grandfather was a hard man, but not a harsh man. Life was hard. I mean, anybody in this room who grew up in that environment, that is a hard life where you have to figure out how you're going to put a meal on the table, where there's a very fine line between you not being able to eat today and being able to eat. And the gratitude, we always said grace before and after meal. We're Catholic. And he would always be grateful. And this is the old porcelain top table. My grandfather sat here. I always sat facing him. I don't know why I got that position where he would just stare at you. I'm like, God, help me. So, and then my grandmother sat here and my brother sat there on this small table. And he would always say, we are grateful that we have food on our table, clothes on our back, and a roof over our head. And it doesn't get much better than that. So he was never unfair. He was very generous. What he would do is, let's say he would make us work to produce something. Then he would say, we are able to provide for others because we work. So we're able to give them corn or beans or peas or syrup or sugar canes or fruit because we work. We were able to give them meat because we raised the hogs. So what he taught us was we had an obligation to do well so that we could do good, particularly for others. So I could not call that fair. I think my grandfather was probably one of the most compassionate people I've ever known because he always told us the truth. He always told us the truth about life. And so I asked my brother unfortunately died 18.
His grandfather taught him, this is Black excellence. If you want to know the genesis of Black excellence, his grandfather taught him that you had a requirement to do well so that you could do good. See, right now, it's almost like it's trendy to be poor, to talk. The other day I talked about in Atlanta how the broken English is. It's funny to talk with this Southern broken style of English. He comes from the South. He doesn't talk that way. His grandfather taught him it was imperative for us to do well so that we can do good. What we need to have come back to Black men and their understanding of greatness. That's what today is about. Clarence Thomas being the greatest Supreme Court justice to ever live besides Thurgood Marshall. The reason that Roe versus Wade was overturned because no one could argue his compelling opinion. Do well so you can do good, Black men. Black people, don't be poverty poor. Don't be happy to be poor. This trendy thing to be ignorant, right? Demon time. All this ignorance is trendy. Do well so that you can do good. Back to the tape. Share the show. Perfect Timing Podcast with the blast. Black Conservative Speaks Podcast Radio. Share the show. How come nobody ever thought of that title? Black Conservative Speaks. Is that fly or not? How come nobody thought of that? God is good. Black Conservative Speaks Radio, Black Conservative Speaks Podcast. My name is Perfect. Back to the video.
Years ago, jogging. He was a year and 4 months younger, and he and I grew up with my grandparents. And I asked him when we were in our 40s, we were very close, and I said, do you think my grandfather, when we went to live with him in 55, said, I will never tell you to do as I say. I will always tell you to do as I do. Watch me. And so I asked my brother years later, after my grandfather was long gone, was he ever a hypocrite? And my brother said, absolutely not. That he lived up to that. That think about that. Would you set yourself up as the model and the example to your own children? And all you do is you said, do as I do. Watch me every day. And we watched him because he would never let us out of his sight. And when he did let you out of his sight, it was with the nuns. Or I could get away from him to the library. I loved the library. You know, we take it for granted now because we have all these computers and all that stuff. But just think of yourself coming from a house with no books.
So, conscious type person, I understand that ignorant statement that you made. I know you think that might be a funny joke, and you may not have heard my intro, right? So I'm gonna ask you to rewind, but I was once as ignorant as that statement that you just made, conscious type person. It's funny that the conscious, the smart dumb niggas is the one who makes statements like this. So I was once ignorant like you too, right? I thought I knew Clarence Thomas. I thought I knew an opinion of Clarence Thomas. But what I would ask you to do before you make such ignorant statements is not only rewind back to the beginning, but pay attention. Pay attention. This man was born and raised by slaves. He was born into poverty. All of his family were servants. No one knew how to read. He came from that and made himself into a Supreme Court justice. Today, we giving Clarence Thomas his flowers. Clarence Thomas is probably the greatest Supreme Court justice to ever live besides Thurgood Marshall. Clarence Thomas is the reason why Roe versus Wade was overturned. Clarence Thomas' concurring opinion could not be refuted by Chief Justice John Roberts, who did not want to overturn Roe versus Wade. The reason why I'm doing today's show is because Black man's greatness is not reserved to athletics. We are great at anything we apply our mind to. There is a Black man right now who created a machine that makes water out of thin air. It is not just Michael Jackson. It is not just Michael Jordan. It is not just Mike Tyson. Our genius, our excellence, our God qualities are not reserved for physical attributes only. Mitch McConnell, I'm doing this show today. Today is called Black Conservative Speaks. Mitch McConnell will not get the fruit today. Mitch McConnell is not the reason why Roe versus Wade was overturned. I don't care who he blocked. I don't care who he appointed. Chief Justice John Roberts would never overturn Roe versus Wade, no matter what Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump did and who they appointed. The only reason Roe versus Wade was overturned and why you could carry a gun in New York and California is because the greatest Supreme Court justice to ever live was a Black man from the rural South who didn't meet his father until he was 9 years old. And no one who raised him could read. Stay here, bro. Stay here, because you're the reason why this show and why this show is being done. Because I know no one in the Black manosphere. I know most of the ignorant propaganda. That's why I'm relating it to Bill Cosby and R. Kelly. Because your opinions are not based in fact. You haven't read the autobiography. You haven't read Clarence Thomas' concurring opinion. You haven't read the opinion from John Roberts. You're simply an ignorant nigger in my chat with a stupid name trying to deter the conversation. But I stopped the podcast because it's ignorant niggas like you who is fucking up the goddamn situation, right? You need to change your motherfucking name. Conscious, you would have to have some type of reverence, some type of research. You would have to base your opinions in something. Have you read the autobiography? Have you read the concurring opinion? Have you read John Roberts' opinion? Do you understand the arguments from the conservatives right about Mitch McConnell? No, you don't. No, you don't. And now you feel stupid like most people will come on my chat. I think you thought that I would not stop the video and roast you. But that's what I do. I roast people for fun. That's what I do. He did not sexually harass his staff, and that's why I'm doing this today, because the media propaganda is so strong. It's the same thing with R. Kelly, and it's the same thing with Bill Cosby. All you have seen is white media exposés. You have not done the research of the man. And today, for the first time in the Black manosphere, people will get to hear from Clarence Thomas. That's why this is so compelling. That's why this is so powerful. Trigger, you have no idea. You have no idea what you stepped into. This is the perfect time to podcast with the blast. I roast people for fun. I will roast you from the chat. I'll roast you from the grave. I'll roast you from the coffin. I roast you for fun. I roast you on vacation. I roast you from the car. I roast you from the table. I roast you from the restaurant. I roast you from the raggedy wig that you've been wearing. I roast for fun. You want to roast with me? I don't think you want to roast with me. This is what I do. This is what I've done. I've created a platform, and I start my show just to sizzle and flame you. Flame fires in the chat. Fire emoji in the chat. Roast. Flame on. I roast for fun. I roast till you're done. I roast till it's no more. My name is Trevor, the big dick Jamaican. I fuck white hoes on vacation. I keep bad bitches in rotation. I roast for fun. I roast for fun. Please don't start me with the gun. Pop, 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 pop. I keep on roasting. I keep on roasting. This is not stop. I am the greatest to ever be done. I am the greatest to ever live. I have no competition. There is no competition. You are a fish. I am a shark. Be a fish or be a shark in the water. Shark on land. Big shark. Big shark on land. No competition. Me roast you. Me roast you for fun. Me roast you from the restaurant. Me roast you from the table. Me roast you from the fire pit. Me roast you from the funeral home. We roast you from the coffin. Me no care. Me no care. Me continue fire. Me continue blaze. Me continue roast. Me continue with the greatest roast session ever done in life. Me continue fire. More blaze. More roast. Please come. Please come. More fire. More fire. This is not real competition. This is not real competition. More fire. More flame. I sound like the motherfucker fucking your bitch. I sound like that nigga fucking your bitch, and you wait outside till I'm done. Back to the video. Back to the video. Back to the video. That's not a roast. That's not a roast. Conscious type of person. Let's go to your name. Let's go to your name, boy. You're not even sure about yourself. You're unsure, man. Your girl in my, you're not even sure about your own name. Conscious type of person. What type of person? Are you sure, son? You're not even sure in your own name of yourself. Conscious type of person. Are you conscious or not? No. So you need to be roasted. You need to be roasted to be sure of your own self. You're the type of person, or you the person? Are you a type of person? Are you truly the person? No, you're not even sure when you give yourself your own name. You did it to yourself today. You enter into my realm. You set yourself a fire upon blaze. Fire in the chat. You set yourself fire upon blaze. You cannot even name yourself correctly. Huh? 5.0, 5.0, 5.0. Fire flames in the chat. Conscious type of person. I know who I am. I am 100% sure that I am perfect, but you not know who you are. You think you are a certain type. I tell you the type you are. You are the pussy type, pussy boy. Pussy boy gets roasted. You're the pussy boy type. You're the type of person that gets roasted, pussy boy. Huh? Pussy boy gets roasted from the chat. Pussy boy gets roasted on the panel. Pussy boy gets roasted every time he come through. Give the pussy boy a hand clap. Give the pussy boy a hand clap. Huh? The pussy boy wants attention. The pussy boy wants the clitoris rub. Give the pussy boy a hand clap. Hand clap for the pussy boy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Me roast ya. Me roast for fun. Me roast for fun. Podcast game. Podcast game can be sung by none. Podcast game can be sung by none. Perfect timing, number one selector. Come down one time. Me roast from the track. Trevor, big dick Jamaican. Fuck white hoes on vacation. Fuck white hoes on vacation. Big dick Jamaican. Keep bad bitches in rotation. Me roast suckers in the fucking nation for fun. Me roast ya for fun. Me Russia for fun. This is nothing. This is nothing. Number one selector. Number one selector. Boom shakalaka. Boom shakalaka. Number one selector. Back to the tape. Sucker ass.
And you get to walk into this world and had Encyclopedia Americana, Encyclopedia Britannica. It had Webster. It had Funk and Wagnall. It had the all sorts of fiction. You know, it had magazines, Look, Life, Time, all the newspapers. It was like the smorgasbord every time you walked in. And you had the reference librarians who would introduce you to new things. Then they introduced you to National Geographic, so you were all over the world. And this is all in Savannah, Georgia. And remember, this is a world of segregation. So it gave you this window to everything else. It gave you a window beyond Georgia. And the nuns encouraged it, the librarians encouraged it. So I had an opportunity some years ago to go back and to write and thank all the librarians. And most recently, I ran into a lady in Savannah, an elderly white lady, because I was among the early kids who went to the Savannah public libraries, desegregated. And I was kind of a nuisance there too, because I kept showing up. It was like I was, where's Waldo? Where's Clarence? He's got to be here someplace. And I remember it's time to get away from my grandfather. And it was just this amazing world. And I ran into this elderly white lady, and she started crying. And she said, I helped you at the Savannah Public Library. And I said, oh my gosh, it was really kind of emotional because I remember how scared I was. You had to cross in those days a lot of lines, but going to the library was worth doing that. Anyway, that's the library.
Tell me more about your Catholic education and your decision to go to seminary.
You know, I look back, I used to ask Justice Scalia.
That's what's so powerful about having a podcast, bro. We're not gonna jump over that. You see how he rubbed his leg. You see how emotional he was when he just talked about that. He said, in those days, you had to cross a lot of lines. Some people will hear this who have issues with white women and interracial relationships and think that he's like capitulating to white women or giving a nod to white women. You just don't understand. You have to listen between the lines. But that's why Perfect Timing is here, to stop the tape and give you my perspective. He said during that time, he started to get emotional physically. You saw him rub his knees. He said you had to cross a lot of lines just to go to the library. Just to go to the library, you had to cross a lot of lines, right? And what did he mean by that? He meant color lines, white bathroom, black bathroom. He had to ride on the bus. Remember the bus boycott? You know what I'm saying? He might be subject to being called the N-word, being called out of his name. A lot, he might have to go through a lot just to get to the library. So he saw this elderly white woman and she cried. She cried because she remembered a little black boy who came from illiteracy. Conscious type thinks it's a joke that he was raised by descendants of slaves. It's not a joke. It's not a joke at all. He just stated that everybody in his family was help and that everybody around him was illiterate. So he went to this library and he had to cross lines, but he was sensitive. You see, he knows his audience. Unlike Conscious, who claims to be conscious, he doesn't understand his audience. But Clarence Thomas knows his audience. He didn't say I had to cross color lines. He didn't say that. He said I had to cross a lot of lines during that time. This is my podcast. So I stopped the podcast to educate my audience on what he meant and why he was physically disturbed, why he started rubbing himself when he talked about the lines he had to cross to go to the library. This is very important in the character of who Clarence Thomas is and how fervently the effort he put into becoming who he is today. This all encapsulates his opinion, right? This is how he comes to his opinion, not only on Roe versus Wade, but on the Second Amendment. Not only did his opinions reverse Roe versus Wade, one of the most powerful and compelling decisions of the Supreme Court in the past 50 years, but he also addressed the Second Amendment in New York and California. This is a bad mamma jamma. This is after living through American apartheid. People died going to the library. People were beaten and killed. He still went through these racial color lines to become who he became. He wasn't scared. He didn't say that white man is going to stop me. He didn't say the white man, because he had to go through racism to go to the library every weekend. But he didn't say the white man who potentially could kill me and beat me up, they not going to stop me, is what he said. And he went to the library anyway. And when he saw this lady later in her life, she cried. This elderly white woman cried because she knew what this little black boy went through, and he made it. He made it through the racism. She knew it was horrible. He made it through the racism. He made it. I'm doing this story so my son and other black men understand that success and greatness is waiting for you. This is a success story. This is a superhero story. Clarence Thomas is a Marvel superhero. This is his origin story. This is an origin story for a black superhero. Straight up. This is an origin story for a black superhero who will go down in history as one of the greatest Supreme Court justices to ever live, who wrote one of the most influential opinions to ever be written by a Supreme Court justice. Black, white, male, female. He will go down in history, whether you like it or not, as one of the greatest Supreme Court justices to ever live. And who wrote one of the most compelling and influential opinions to ever be written. The Chief Justice could not refute his opinion. That's the only reason Roe versus Wade was overturned. That's why Roe versus Wade was overturned. That's why we're doing this show today. Shout out to Clarence Thomas.
About that, he always thought it was interesting that we were so similar. He would say, Clarence, he said, my father was a romance literature professor. My mother was a teacher. So I know how I got here. How did you get here? And why are we at the same place? Why do we have the same set of beliefs? And I think the beauty of having gone to parochial schools was they taught us there was a right way to think about things. That we had to be honest with ourselves, honest about math, honest about physics, honest about chemistry, that you couldn't cheat when you did your Latin translations or German or French, because I had all those in high school. And I was talking recently with someone, he said it was your formation, that there was always a right way to do things. There was an honest way to do things. And the progression is, I became Catholic when I went to the second grade in 1955, Sister Mary Dolorosa, sister, and wonderful person. So at any rate, I became an altar boy, and the progression is you become an altar boy, and if you progress as an altar boy, you consider whether or not you have a vocation. And in those days, you went to a minor seminary. So in 1964, I decided that I thought I had a vocation. So I was 15, and then the following year, when I was 16, I went to the seminary. The difficulty was, again, things hadn't been desegregated yet. So you were, again, crossing these racial barriers. So you had that challenge. But to be honest with you, even that was not nearly as difficult as going to school in New England. There were a few jerks, we all have those, but beyond that, the school was excellent. The people were fair to me. It was very, very challenging academically. And also I like to say I finished in the top 10 of my high school class because there were only 9 of us. But hey, you have to take these things where you get them. So that'd be the last time I'd be able to say that.
What about your decision to leave the seminary?
Well, that was 1968. Any of us who were around in 1968, it was 1968. And the wheels were coming off the wagons in a lot of ways. And the little Catholic kid from the rather insular world of Savannah suddenly was reading, and it was that long, hot, Dr. King was assassinated. We became quite race conscious, which has some problematic sides as good sides. And I think a lot of us, you went from being the nice Catholic kid to the angry Black kid. And that was 1968. So then I returned home and was greeted with my grandfather, who told me that if I'm going to do that, then I need to find out another place to live. So he kicked me out of the house, and I was on my own. I was 19 years old. That was May 1968.
But you went to Holy Cross.
I had, I know there's all this myth about how I went, and people love to come up with narratives and myths. They should read the Aeneid or something. But at any rate, my chemistry teacher asked a high school, a classmate of mine, to send me an application. I had ranked very high in my class in seminary, first year college. And I just simply filled it out, and I transferred to Holy Cross. I was accepted almost immediately and transferred to Holy Cross in 1968. So I wasn't going to go because I was tired of being the only Black kid, or one or two or three, and I was going to go to Savannah State. But then when my grandfather disinvited me from living in his house, I thought it might not be a good idea to hang around. So I just, I hadn't really thought about any other school. So I had been accepted to Holy Cross. So I got on the train and went to Holy Cross. You can see all the planning I did. So that's why I say to people, my whole life has been providential, because I certainly didn't know what was going on.
In your book, Justice, you talk about being a radical at Holy Cross, about being angry. Did you feel you were being treated unfairly?
At Holy Cross?
Yeah.
No, I was just mad at the world. I mean, it was 1968. I was angry. I mean, I didn't need a logical reason to be angry. I was angry about things that happened in the past. I was angry about things that were going to happen in the future. If you said good morning to me, I was angry. If you didn't say good morning, I was angry. So I was angry. And people sort of exploited that. And, I remember going to Harvard Square, and in April 15, 1970, and we were pretty upset. I couldn't explain to myself why I just did that. All night we were rioting, and I got back home, got back to Holy Cross, and that's when I made a promise to God that I would never, that if he took anger out of my heart, I would never do that again. I would never let anger control my life. That was the morning of April 16, 1970, and I've attempted to live up to that.
What made you choose law?
It's kind of the Forrest Gump effect, How do I know? I was going to be a priest, and when you have a vocation, you think the belief is God is calling you, and that's only dream I've ever had, was to be a priest. I don't think it ever quite leaves you. And when I went off to Holy Cross, I was in a little bit of a tailspin. So I was looking for the next call. What am I called to do? So I decided that God would call me to go to Savannah and to help out. And one way to do that was to be in law. And so I went to law school to return to Savannah. So if you notice, I've never really worked in a law firm. I worked in a small firm in Savannah, Georgia, in the summer of between second and third year law school, because I wanted to return to Savannah. For reasons that I'm not going to get into, that job did not live up to my expectations. Now I've got a wife. Today's my son's 45th birthday. So he was a little kid. And I had a wife and child and student loans. And now I need a job, because I'm not going back to this situation that I don't think is right in Savannah. And I couldn't get a job in Savannah, Georgia. That's literally it. I couldn't get a job in Atlanta, Georgia. I couldn't get a job in Washington, D.C. I couldn't get a job in New York, and I couldn't get a job in L.A. I mean, I struck out every place I could. So I wound up in Jefferson City, Missouri. And because they didn't give me a job in Atlanta is the reason I wound up on the court. So it's their fault. Otherwise, I would be comfortably a tax lawyer or something.
Tell me about your years at Yale.
What about it?
Do you remember them?
Thanks for that. I think that was ageism.
No. That was a slight on Yale. That was all it was.
You can see I've always enjoyed my law clerks. And we enjoyed teaching together. We've been teaching together for 6 or 7 years at GW Law School, and we've had a total blast. It's a good thing they don't really pay us for it. Well, you're not going to get paid now because you're going to be adjunct like the rest of us. Yale was the perfect school for me. I've had my complaints for reasons after Yale, but Yale showed me where I needed to be. If I went back to Yale, I would go differently today. I wouldn't go with all these burdens of anger and bitterness and self-restrictions and constraint. I would spend a lot of time in the Sterling Library, which I loved being in. I would spend a lot of time doing the things that I like. I'd be like that young kid at KU. I just want to go to school. I just want to be a kid. I like chamber music. I'd go to that. I like debates. I like recitals. I'm reading a book now on the Plantagenets. Kagan was at Yale. I should have gone to those lectures for whether it's Greek history or myth or wars, the Peloponnesian Wars or something. I loved debates. I loved just the philosophy. And it was all there. I could go to off-Broadway plays. I didn't go to anything because I was mad at the world. So I was self-restricted in this place that offered all these opportunities. The law school was good for me because it showed me how much work I needed to do what I wanted to do, how much I needed to learn. And the question I asked myself when I left was, are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to dedicate yourself to learning all you need? And so I would have to say, in retrospect, it was small enough. It was academically challenging. It was interesting. The professors were almost to a person fair to me. It wasn't the best choice as far as being able to distinguish yourself because of the grading system. But I can't look back and offer any complaints. I know in the past I've not said pleasant things, but that had to do with some other reactions.
Let's move forward to the confirmation process. About a third of your book has to do with the confirmation process, and that's been 27 years or so. How is your view of being confirmed and the politics involved? How is all that? Has your view changed of it?
I think it's sort of like surgery. The only minor surgery's on the other guy. I don't think the process is what it ought to be. I think that these are serious jobs, and I think they should be serious. I don't think they should become spectacle. This is not the Roman Colosseum. We're not gladiators. And I think we're going to lose some of our best people who choose not to go through the ordeal. They don't want to have to fight the lion in order to be a judge or to be in government. And I think it's our own fault for allowing this to happen. I was confirmed 5 times in 10 years, and it got increasingly worse. And I think that we are going to, at some point, have the leadership we deserve. because we allow the selection process to get out of our control and to have very little to do with selecting the kind of people we need. If you look at, you would think about it, you went through confirmation, and yours wasn't particularly controversial, but it was an ordeal. And what if it was embittered? And I think that a lot of people have second thoughts. I can't tell you how many people I know who in the middle of it said, what was I thinking? And I think that's unfortunate. I think the country is going to lose something because of that. So I don't have bitter feelings or anything like that. I don't have strong reactions, but I think I'm sober in my judgment of it. And I think a lot of the difficulties are irrelevant to the jobs. Think about it. How many people, for example, who have done the job of judging, who actually talk about judges? Is usually the people who are doing the most talking have never judged a single case. I just find it absolutely fascinating that a lot of the commentary has nothing to do with the job itself. I found when I got to the DC circuit, I found that job absolutely fabulous. The people there were fabulous. And to the Supreme Court, after going through all those difficulties, the members of the court were just wonderful people to a person. It was a fabulous place to work. You were there. It was a lot of work. It was very difficult our first term. But in retrospect, it was an exciting time. Just the ideas and learning, and everybody there made it as decent a place as it could possibly be. So the court itself is quite different from the ordeal. It's almost the opposite of the ordeal it took to get there.
What are the best and worst things about being a Supreme Court justice?
The best, I think, would have to be interacting with my kids as a clerk to going through life, watching you all. It's just, that's the best part. I'd have to say too, my wife is now a former law clerk. She is emeritus. We gave her an honorary law clerk degree. But watching her, my wife was 34 years old when I got to the court. Watching her enjoy the clerks and the kids, it is such a joy. I remember when Nicholas was born. Now, what is he doing?
It's in graduate school.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so watching all of that. It's just fantastic. I remember when you and Janice got married. It's just that. So that's the best part. The worst part is the loss of anonymity. I don't like the public part, but that's a part of the deal. I'm not going to complain about it. But those of you who are introverts, you know what I'm talking about. We prefer, and it's sort of like I said to my clerks who were introverts of the world unite. And then they said, but do we have to go to meetings? So I read Susan Cain's book, Quiet, which I think is the best book. For those of us who are introverts, that's the hard part, the public part. And you know what I could add to that, and it's not a complaint. All of this is a part of the deal. I have no complaints. I don't like the myth making around the court and who we are. There's a real decided difference between what is said about what goes on in judging in the court and what actually happens. There's the real world and there's the myth of that world. We don't have the time, the energy, or the ink, or the bits or bytes or whatever they call that to change, to engage in that narrative battle. We have work to do. We have to write opinions. I've been around a lot of judges. Whether you agree with them or not, they actually put the work in. it's a wonderful world to work in, where you actually have to write out your opinions and think things through and have arguments and go through all the statutes and go through all the constitutional provisions and go through all the rules of statutory interpretation or construction, all the interpretive canons. And it's fascinating. So I like that world. But then the world that people talk about it, that you don't agree on something. Oh, you hate old people. What? Or you're just, you want to execute people. I haven't met a judge who wants to execute anybody. I haven't met that judge yet. In fact, every judge I have met, going through these cases, look at what it does to your hair. So you start out, your hair is black, you have lots of it. Then all of a sudden, you're follically impaired and you're like, your hair, what's left turns gray. And you said, oh my God, another execution. I mean, like every one of us is like, did I get it right? Did I make a mistake? And yet you have the people who create the myth about it, who think that suddenly you're callously doing these things. Those are people who've never stayed up in the middle of the night and voted for one of these things. So I like being around judges. I like the work. I like the world I'm a part of. I think the world, those who talk about it are not doing the world justice or the rest of our fellow citizens justice in talking about an important part of their government.
In talking about the work, I noticed in the Supreme Court statistics that for the last 2 years, you've written about twice as many opinions as any of the other justices.
That's because I really don't talk, so I get to write a lot.
Why so many opinions?
Who knows? So Justice Scalia said I was solipsistic. So I said, Nino, I have no idea what that means, but I like the ring of it. So I think that means I really like my own opinions. But then he said once he said, Clarence, you really don't care for other people's opinions, do you? I said, no, I do care, but I prefer my own. I don't know. I think it is really important that when you vote for these things, that you explain why. And that if it doesn't make sense, my granddaddy, I'm not going to use the words he used exactly, but he would say, boy, if it don't make no sense, it don't make no sense. Of course, he would spice it up a little bit. And, things have to make sense to me. When you come from the lower levels in society, poverty, things have to make sense. My granddaddy, you have to feed, either you fed the hogs or you didn't feed the hogs. You either greased the tractor or you didn't grease the tractor. You either planted the corn or you didn't plant the corn. It was binary. It was clear. And I think when we do these cases, we owe it to our fellow citizens to explain in plain language what we are doing. And sometimes when you see me writing, it's because what the court is doing, the premise, I think, disagree with, and I think it's wrong. And if you go back and you look at the Court of Appeals judges, I think it is a little bit glib, I'm not going to say disrespectful, for us to, when there are differences of opinions in the courts of appeals and the district courts, for us not to explain why we hold a different opinion from them, or not to fully explore the opinions below and just glibly disagree. I think we owe them that respect. So I worked through everything, and I probably put a lot of pressure on my law clerks. I wouldn't clerk for me. That is way too much work. And I tell them that before they go, you sure you want to do this? Why are you doing this? Oh boy, there's a 13th Amendment. So
What's changed in your judging over the 27 years?
That is really a good question, Judge. I think there's, it's sort of like if you climb a mountain, when you're at 1,000 feet, you see something, you still look at the same scenery, but you have a different view from when you're at 10,000 feet or 5,000 feet. You see more. I've been doing this so long that you see more, you understand more. The reason I was reading this book on the Plantagenets was because of English common law, which started out, people do a lot of talking about stare decisis. So I decided to teach a course on it to understand it in depth. But then to understand stare decisis, you have to understand English common law. To understand English common law, you have to understand where England came from, the Norman conquest, the Vikings, the Romans. Then to understand that, you've got to actually trace those histories. So anyway, I've done that. Now I'm fascinated by, the Plantagenets and what they've done in developing England. What were they doing? What does the exchequer mean? Why did the king pull all this together? But to understand, you got to pull all the history together. But look how many years that takes. That's what I learned at Yale, that this wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon. And it was a lifelong endeavor. It's what you and I do when we teach constitutional law together. Look at all the cases we've read. Look at how much in depth we've read those cases. I mean, how many people who care about Trop v. Dulles? Right. You and I do. You and I care about it. Flass v. Cohen. Yeah, they cite it, but they don't read it. You and I do. We have to. Why? Because we're messing with other people's constitution. You and I have to do it, and you know why. We have to go back and read the briefs because we're tinkering with other people's constitution. We don't have any unlimited license to do that. And we certainly don't have a right to be reckless with it. So over the years, what you learn is it's like you've gone higher, or another metaphor would be you're peeling the onion. And you understand, you see more. Not because you're smarter or because people love to set themselves up as philosopher kings or something. No, it's because you've been doing it longer. This is what I do. I don't have hobbies. Well, except for rooting against Alabama. But oh, you knew it was coming though, didn't you? Oh my gosh, they stole another national championship. Go away. This is what I do. I do law. And anybody who it consumes you. And virtually everything I do is in preparation of doing this job. I think I owe this. Remember, it's about your calling. And if you're called to do it, you're called to do it a certain way. If you go back and look at Justice Scalia, look what he died doing. People forget. He had finished, he thought it was our job to fly the flag, to go different places and to talk to people about what we do. He was more outgoing than I am. I'll be honest about that. But he'd tell me, Clarence, you got to fly the flag. You have to go out there. Then the other thing, when he did his work, everything mattered to him. Every sentence, every word, every comma, every idea, it all mattered. And it mattered. That's one of the reasons we trusted each other, because we both knew it mattered. Getting it right was important to both of us. Why would we do it otherwise? Why would we be doing this? This is wrong. How would you look your fellow citizens in the eye if you didn't get it right? If I looked at you and told you, oh, I don't care. I kind of, I go and I watch cartoons, and then, I kind of flip coins for your Constitution, or I kind of just do whatever I want to do. I would never do that, ever, because that's wrong. And he believed the same thing. We took an oath to do it a certain way. So, yeah, I think I have to inform myself in order to make decisions about your Constitution. And you feel the exact same way. And you just became a judge, and you feel exactly the same way, that you have a special obligation. or you would have been 28 years as a reservist in the military, or the best teacher at GW Law School for a quarter of a century.
Talk about your teaching, Justice. What?
Well, I knew you'd change the subject.
Yeah, you taught it. You've been teaching at Georgia, and George Mason, at GW. What's all the teaching? What is your goal in teaching?
You know, I think that people make learning. Well, let me back up. Did you see The Wizard of Oz?
Yes.
Okay, who was the wizard?
Who was the wizard?
He was that little guy.
He was a little guy. I could have said that.
Yeah. So I think what we do sometimes is we make everything mysterious.
Don't look behind the curtain.
Yeah, we should look behind the curtain. That's what we do in our class. It's not mysterious. There was a young man in our constitutional law class at the end. He said, I'll never look at law the same again. I don't know what his leanings were. I don't care what his ideology is. What we were trying to get him to do is demystify it. It's not that complicated. Why do we make it complicated? Why do we make it inaccessible? I had a buddy who was a quadriplegic. He was one of my best friends. And this is in the days back in the 70s before you had all these flushed curbs and curb cuts. So every time we got to like a curb, it was like the Great Wall of China. And we would have to, if we weren't there to lift him over it, lift him downstairs and things, it was inaccessible to him. And to some extent, that's what we do to law. We start talking about negative pregnants, and we use double entendres and throw in a little Latin and a little this. Why don't we talk in English? You know, that farmer in rural Alabama has a right to know what his Constitution says. And so what I do is, one of the things I say, and I've said even when you were clerking, is that genius is not putting a $20, a 10-cent idea in a $20 sentence. Genius is putting a $20 idea in a 10-cent sentence. It is to make it accessible as possible to average people. So when I used to go back home, think about it. I came from a world of illiteracy or near illiteracy. And when you went back home, you could not talk down to people. That's what they would say to you. They wouldn't use the word condescend. That wasn't in their vocabulary. You're talking down to me. In other words, you're putting me down. But you had to explain things to them without treating them like they're lesser human beings. So it's what we used to say in the vernacular back in the 60s, you had to break it down. In other words, you had to speak without losing meaning, without losing content. You had to explain it in a language that they understood. And I think one of the things that we try to do in the opinions is to explain things to people. I think we owe it to people. In order to do that, we have to know it, as we do in the classes. Look at the eyes on the students when we're done. When they figure out that they know more about Lochner now than they did before, simply because we've read all the briefs and articles about it, et cetera, and we know the story behind it. And all of a sudden they can claim it. They understand it. It makes sense. Or if you look, when I wrote separately in the McDonnell opinion, what I was trying to do is, after all this talk of substantive due process, just simply explain to people, we don't know where does it come from? Where does it come from? It's not in the Constitution. But so you go back and you say, here's what's there. Now you don't have to agree, but privilege or immunities clause is actually there. Here's what they actually debated. And you can disagree with that, but you can see the coherence. You can go to Dred Scott, and you can see that it was, like Tawney is saying, blacks can't be citizens. Well, that's remedied in the 14th Amendment. And then it says you can't deny them privilege or immunities of citizenship. So it all makes sense once you go through the history. And I think that's what I tried to do in the opinions. It's not so much to give you some legal theory, but to give you the progress of this provision. And then to show you where it's connected to some of the other concerns they had about blacks in the South being able to defend themselves.
Justice, I wish we could stay all afternoon, but I've gotten the
Well, they're leaving, but you and I can stay.
I've gotten the signal that the time is up, but Thank you for your remarks.
Well, thank you all for spending this this afternoon with us. Sorry to take so much of your time, but and maybe we didn't cover everything that you probably wanted us to, but we're going to be talking later on about the Dormant Commerce Clause for those who are interested. So thank you all very, very much.
That was powerful, man. That was powerful. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Make sure you're hitting the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe. Concurring opinion. That was a powerful video. So why did I show the video? Rewind to the beginning, man. Rewind to the beginning. Like I just was saying to Deborah in the chat. Shout out to Deborah Carr. Thank you, Tracy. I'm listening. Ken, everybody supporting. What I said is that I'm very proud to be able to present. I'm very proud to be able to present Clarence Thomas in a way that I haven't been able to see him presented by black men and in the black space before. So I think there's a calling on this podcast, and I think we've been called, you guys. We've been asked to do work, and I feel blessed to be challenged and charged with that task. And I believe we did some quality work here today. My name is Perfect. This is the Black Conservative Speaks podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in to Black Conservative Speaks Radio. What we have on the screen is, I believe, one of the most influential opinions ever written by a Supreme Court justice, making Judge Clarence Thomas one of the most influential Supreme Court justices to ever hold a seat on the Supreme Court. That's saying a lot. And that's not including the Second Amendment and being able to carry a gun in New York and California. We're just focusing on Roe versus Wade, but that was also as influential. What I said in the chat is Clarence Thomas' influence on American politics has been extremely understated. I'm going to bring up that comment. I said Clarence Thomas' influence on American politics has been extremely understated, right? His influence on American politics has been truly understood. I mean, if you just look at his opinions, right? His opinions on the Second Amendment, his opinions on Roe versus Wade. Okay, so the reason why I did this show today is that I believe black man's greatness is not reserved to athletics only. It is not just Michael Jordan. It is not just entertainment. It is not just music and sports. Our greatness is can be found in anything and everything we do. The greatest doctor to ever live, Dr. Charles Drew. Beyond that, Johnny Cochran's doctor was a black man. And I believe it is my opinion, and it is the opinion of the Black Conservative Radio and the Perfect Timing Podcast, Black Conservative Speaks Radio, and Black Conservative Speaks Podcast, that Justice Clarence Thomas is the greatest Supreme Court justice to ever live, besides Thurgood Clarence Marshall. I'm basing that on the fact that his opinions have been the most influential ever on the court. Justice Clarence Thomas just wrote the most influential opinion to ever be written since Thurgood Marshall. So we have to give him his props as being one of the greatest Supreme Court justices to ever serve on the court, and as a black man. And I believe because he is a black man, because he is so powerful and influential, he's been poo-pooed to black America, to where why isn't black America saying that Clarence Thomas should run for president? Colin Powell never ran for president, because Colin Powell also, because he was appointed by a Republican, the same one that Clarence Thomas was appointed by. Well, Clarence Thomas and Colin Powell got to be racist, right? Colin Powell got to be racist. Why? Colin Powell, again, one of the most powerful, influential people on the planet, not just black men. Colin Powell at the time was one of the most powerful and influential black men on the planet. We all thought that he should run for president. Instead, Barack Obama ran for president. Colin Powell should have ran for president. But media told you that Colin Powell wasn't the right type of black. Clarence Thomas is not being discussed for president. After writing this influential opinion, people want to give credit to Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell doesn't deserve the credit. Clarence Thomas wrote the opinion. Here's the opinion right here. Here's the opinion right here. This is Thomas E. Dobbs, State Health on writ. You know what I'm saying? United States Court of Appeals, Fifth Circuit, on June 24th, 2022. Justice Thomas concurring. I join the opinion of the court. I join the opinion of the court because it correctly holds that there is no constitutional right to abortion. That's where it's going to start. That's where it's going to start right there. That's where it start right there. Everybody, share the show, man. Share the show, man. We ain't playing around. Share the show, man. We ain't playing around. And I'm not gonna keep you long, man. I know that was a long interview, but it was needed, man. That information had to get out in the Black manosphere. You know what I'm saying? So check this out right from the beginning, man. I join the opinion of the court because it correctly holds that there is no constitutional right to abortion. Respondents invoke, what does it say? Respondents invoke one source for the right. The 14th Amendment guarantees that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law. The court well explains why, under our substantive due process precedents, the purported right to abortion is not a form of liberty protected by due process clause. Woo! Man, powerful, powerful, powerful. Let me make sure my mic's still on. My mic's still on. Because when I go woo, my mic's still on? Yeah, my mic's still on. When I go woo, sometimes my mic go out. All right. My mic's still on, man. All my 5.0 blue wrenches, make sure my audio stay good. It's a powerful already, man. It's powerful already. You know what I'm gonna do? You know what I'm gonna do? I think you know what I'm gonna do? Because I like so far what we did. I think I'm gonna shut it down. What y'all think? What y'all think? I think I might shut it down and come back and read the opinion. I think I might come back and read the opinion tomorrow or next week. What y'all think? Y'all want to hear the opinion? Because I think I've been doing hour-long shows, right? I've been doing hour-long shows, and we already almost at the 2-hour mark. So I don't know if I want to get into the opinion today. You know, I think I might want to get into the opinion on my next podcast. This is an inaugural episode of Black Conservative Speaks, but I definitely want to talk about this opinion. I'm excited because it was perfect. Some of us don't understand the words used. Please break down for us. For sure, for sure. So, in this opinion, Chief Justice, well, not Chief Justice, but Justice Thomas is saying that he joins the opinion of the court and he correctly holds that there is no constitutional right to abortion. So when he says respondents invoke one source for that right. So when he says respondents, he's talking about people who disagree with the court, right? Respondents invoke one source for that right. And that one source is the 14th Amendment guarantee that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, right? And this is what me and Roger was talking about the other day about children being property. The court well explains why under our substantive due process, meaning the process that they took that was actually substantive, that it was a laborious, a real process that they really did go through research, precedents, right? They went through precedents, the purported right, the proposed right, right? You're proposing that abortion is a right is not a form of liberty. It's not a liberty, right? It's not a liberty protected by due process. So the 14th Amendment does not apply, right? This is not a liberty protected by the due process clause. Such a right is neither deeply rooted in this nation's history and tradition, right? Because this is recent in the last 50 years. We haven't had this the whole time we've been a nation. And 50 years is a short amount of time. I know young people think 50 years is a long time, but 50 years is actually a short amount of time, respective to how long the country's been here and the longevity of the country, right? So tradition, nor implicit in the concept of ordered liberty. So during the time, and even up to 50 years ago, the how do they say the people the people who wrote the Constitution, or I don't want to say the framers, right? They call them framers. They did not intend the definition of liberty to include this procedure. Washington versus, and then he quotes a ruling, right, a precedent to back up his argument. Like in the Black Manosphere, you got to have receipts, right? Washington versus Glucksberg, 521 U.S. 702, 1997. International quotation marks admitted. The idea that the farmers of the framers, there it is, again, the framers of the 14th Amendment understood the due process clause to protect the right to abortion is farcial. Shit, I don't even know what that means. We're gonna have to look that up. Farce, like a farce, right? Farce meaning false, right? Farcial. I've never heard that word. I've never heard that. What's the how you say when you say farce or farced or farcial? What's the version? I've never heard that version. Yeah, farce. So when I Google it, what comes up is farce or relating to a farce, right? And a farce is a comedy that seeks to entertain the audience in situations, right? So a lie, basically, it's a lie. It's a farce, right? I like that word. I might have to use that. Farcical. So it says that's comedy. Look at the way he wrote his opinion. The idea that the framers of the 14th Amendment, like the people with the white wigs, this is actually, I mean, it's not funny to people, you know, like if you're pro-choice, you may not find it funny, but I find it funny. This is why this is the greatest opinion ever written. He called their idea that the 14th Amendment protects their ability to do this. He called it comical, right? He actually called it farcical, and I've never heard that term used before. This is a real black nerd, man. Clarence Thomas, man. Clarence Thomas is a real black nerd, man. Farcical, man. Let me read that again, man. I like that, man, because it's so intelligently written, man. The idea that the framers of the 14th Amendment understood the due process clause to protect a right to abortion is farcical, right? Because no one used abortion back then, right? No one, the white wigs, the powder on their face, Thomas Edison, Andrew Jackson, all them motherfuckers, there wasn't no abortion back then. So ain't that, I love it. I love it. Clarence Thomas is the man, man. Man, farcical, man. He said, ain't no, shit. That's farcical to think that when they wrote the 14th Amendment that they was thinking about that procedure. And that's actually true. That's actually true. So let's keep going, man. We're gonna go to it's 2 hours, okay? I write separately to emphasize a second, more fundamental reason why there is no abortion guarantee lurking in due process clause. Considerable history Considerable historical evidence indicates that due process of law merely require executive and judicial actors to comply with legislative enactments and the common law when depriving a person of drum roll please, life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. I'm in the pursuit of happiness, you know that? Smoking on this good apples and bananas. Other sources, by contrast, suggest that due process of law prohibited legislatures from authorizing the deprivation of a person's life, liberty, or property without providing him the customary procedures to which free men were entitled to by the law of old England. The law of England. Y'all didn't know that the law of England was here, huh? How many people knew that we live by the law of England? Woo, man, it was not easy to find this opinion. Okay, you hear a lot of people talking about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas concurring opinion. So I wanted to read it, right? I wanted to read what was everybody so worried about, right? But it was not easy to find this document. And guess who found this document? Perfect Timing Podcast. Let me give myself a coffee deal, man, because this is a coffee deal, man. Man, come on, because ain't nobody had this document, man. Everybody talking about, that ratchet Rakisha. Yo, Rakisha is going viral right now. Check this out. Rakisha going viral. Perfect Timing is talking about Clarence Thomas concurring opinion. My podcast today is not about Rakisha. My podcast today is saying something provocative. I am putting forth that Clarence Thomas, because of this opinion, is one of the greatest Supreme Court justices to ever sit on the bench, making him a black man who grew up in civil rights and racism, him himself who talked about quitting school in 1968, him himself admitting in his autobiography to rioting because he was angry about racism. He went on to become a Supreme Court justice, and he has just written the most influential opinion ever written on the court, on the bench. This podcast today, Black Conservative Speaks Radio, is to give props to the greatest Supreme Court justice to ever live, Clarence Thomas. Yes, I did. 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 Kill a game again. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Kill a game again. That's what I do. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Kill a game again. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Okay, let's get back to this opinion, man. Other sources, by contrast, suggest that the due process of law prohibited legislatures from authorizing the deprivation of a person's life, liberty, or property without providing him customary procedures to which a free man were entitled by the old law of England. Do y'all understand what he's saying? That the baby is alive and the baby is entitled to due process, and that the mother is not entitled to take away the unborn child's due process. Y'all understand what he is saying? That the Constitution actually says the opposite. He is saying that the Constitution actually says the opposite to women. That you do not have a right to take away the due process. And the law did not intend to give women the power and authority to take away due process from said citizen, whether they was out of the womb or inside of the womb. This is extremely powerful. Clarence Thomas, let's keep going, baby. Let's keep going. Razzle, razzle. Let's keep going, baby. Let's keep going. So let's keep going on it. All right. Where we at? Right here. Authorizing that. United States versus Vallejo Madero, 596 U.S. 2022. Okay. Either way, the due process clause at most guarantees process. Ooh. Ooh, I like the way he wrote that. Either way, the due process clause at most guaranteed process. It does not, as the court substantive due process cases suppose, forbid the government to infringe certain fundamental liberty interests at all, no matter what processes is provided. Ooh, he went in and he got another court case he signed in Reno versus Flores. As I have previously explained, substantive due process. He going in like I'm repeating myself. Is an oxymoron. right? Like he said, farcical. Substantive due process is he's saying their whole argument is a comical, farcical oxymoron that lacks basis in Constitution. Woo, let's go, Chief Justice. This is why Chief Justice Roberts could not beat this opinion. Wow. See, also, man, he said, see, also this. And he said, and the history provide little support for modern substantive due process doctrine. The notion that a constitutional provision that guarantees only process before a person is deprived of life, liberty, or property could define the substance of rights strains credulity. I don't know what that is. For even the most casual user of words, uh, 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 for the most casual use of words. Okay. The resolution of this case is thus straightforward because the due process clause does not secure any substantive rights. Ooh, the due process clause assures you process, but does not assure you rights. Man, listen, man. How many people read this, man? Okay. Thus, the resolution in this case is thus straightforward because the due process clause does not secure any substantive rights. It does not secure a right to abortion. If it does not, if due process clause that the respondents are claiming is what is giving them the ability to have abortion, what he's saying is the due process clause only ensures you process. It cannot give you a right. The due process clause does not give you a right. It does not give you a right to the procedure. The court today declines to disturb substantive due process jurisprudence generally or the doctrine's application in other specific context cases as Griswold, Connecticut. Man, he went in. Okay. Right to same-sex marriage are not at issue. The court abortion case are unique. See, and no party has asked us to decide whether our entire 14th Amendment jurisprudence must be preserved or revised, right? Thus, I agree that nothing in the court's opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. So he's just said right there, I don't know why they're saying that, for the reason in the future cases we should reconsider all of this court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold Lawrence, because any substantive due process decision is demonstrably erroneous, right? We have a duty to correct the error established in those precedents. Ooh, so he is going after overruling these demonstrably erroneous decisions. The question would remain whether other constitutional provisions guarantee the myriad rights that our substantive due process cases have generated. For example, we could consider whether any of the rights announced in the court's substantive due process cases are privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States protected by the 14th Amendment. Wow. Wow. I'm gonna end it there. I'm gonna end it there. I'm gonna end it there. My phone going crazy. Oh man, I love you too, baby. I didn't see you in the chat. What my baby say? Spent my entire lunch on hold. Oh man, 90 callers. I have to go back. Damn. We blessed. We blessed, baby. Don't even trip. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you, baby. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. I don't know how to spell, y'all. Y'all know I'm dyslexic, right? It's not spelling it for me. And how you spell dedication? Is it D-E-D or D-I-D? There it is. It heard me, you motherfucker, for your hard work and dedication. I'm gonna dedicate this dick. I'm gonna dedicate. I'm gonna dedicate this dick to you. I'm gonna dedicate dick, this this dick to you tonight. This dick. I'm gonna dedicate this dick to your ass tonight. Tonight. I wanna get tonight. Put a 40 in the freezer because I wanna get bent tonight. What a fella in the J and it looked like a pencil. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. I'm gonna dedicate this dick to your ass tonight. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in to another powerful, powerful podcast. Perfect Timing Podcast with the Blast simulcasting live on 3 channels. Tonight has been the inaugural episode of the Black Conservative Speaks. You know what I'm saying? I said today we saw a video, a conversation with Clarence Thomas. I said, Clarence, that was the origin story for a Black superhero. Clarence Thomas, in my eyes, is a Black superhero. I'm extremely proud to be a Black man today. I'm extremely proud of the work Clarence Thomas has done on the Supreme Court. I don't want only white men to give him his props. You know what I mean? I love Clarence Thomas for everything he's done. So I'm going to dedicate this last song. I'm gonna dedicate this last song to Clarence Thomas. You know what I'm saying? A real Black superhero. You know what I'm saying? Every Black superhero deserves his own theme music. You know what I'm saying? So, Clarence Thomas, I got a theme song for you. Thank you to everybody who watch me. Tune in every day. My name is Perfect. This is the Perfect Timing Podcast. Tune in every day, y'all. I need y'all to tune in every day. You know what I'm saying? I need y'all to like, share, and subscribe. Y'all like this? You know, I got different tweaks. I got different tweaks. I got different vibes. I'll be on the Roger Report. You can catch me on the Roger Report live every morning. In the mornings we have discussion over there. You can catch me here. You got Thanos Monday. You know, Watch Your Taco Tuesday. Today is the inaugural episode of Black Conservative Speaks. You're going to see more Black Conservative Speaks because we have a midterm election coming up. So we got a red wave. We have a midterm election. We have Joe Biden. We have Roe versus Wade. We have Kamala Harris. So it's going to be politics coming up in the next couple months. What better way for me to continue my platform but to create a vehicle for me to discuss politics? So the vehicle I'm going to use to discuss politics is going to be called Black Conservative Speaks Podcast, Black Conservative Speaks Radio. I like the name. I think it has a great ring to it. I'm excited about where we're going to go going forward with Black Conservative Speaks Podcast, Black Conservative Speaks Radio. So I hope you're excited as I am about the journey that we're about to take. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to play some theme music for the Black superhero who is Clarence Thomas. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Thank you guys for your support, man. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, vote in the poll, and enjoy this theme music.
Where you been all night, huh? I know you wasn't in your bed. Your bed's still made up and everything. You come in here with new clothes on and stuff. What are you doing with your life? I know that coat costs about $500-600. Where you getting the money from? Why you don't go to school and make something out of your life, huh? Look at all this jewelry and stuff you got on. No tennis shoes. I'll try to raise you right. But no, you go out there with your hooligan friend and do all kind of wrong. Won't you stay home and go to school and be right? I'm tired of this. 94 Revolution.
I hit the loot juice Ed pulls up in the deuce. He gives me the scoop about the fake ass truths and how niggas out there wanna play. I take another hit of the wet and then I blast away. How far, player? Far enough to go off the edge. I push another nigga off the ledge, so I stumble as I slide to the Chevy. Yeah, my eyes kinda teary and gun kinda heavy. I'm a walking dead man, is what they call me when I'm coming. Got the big S on my chest, so I'm kinda gunning high powered on my way to the west side to check up on some chickens. It's a hell of a drive, so drive on. As I hit my dodo stick to the break of dawn. Crime fighting's what I do, and niggas in my crew don't take lightly to you busters, and so we say fuck you, then fuck you, tuck you in for the night. As you think about the paper at the funeral site. So when I'm hanging with the clique and we in demand, I feel good that the city of angels call me Black Superman.
Hot. I ain't in right now, but please, I'm at the beat, you know, I'm out flossing, tossing, dipping and tripping, you know what I'm saying?
Hey Hutch, man, they just made it your mama house, man. I don't know what they got, I broke, man. They looking for us, man. Call me over Peach's house, man.
Now it was once said by an old low G, always trying to come up, yeah, and that's a G. Cause where I'm from, it's like a curse. Cause see, once in a lifetime, everybody did some dirt. I guess it got to me the same. So at the age of 15, I entered the dope game. I had my game locked up tight. In the day I went to school, but I clocked all night. And when I went to class, I always fell asleep. But I was out like a motherfucker. If somebody beat, my teacher say, boy, can't they wait? I said, no, I got to put some more icing on my cake. I think I saved about 50 G's. I bought a truck, a house, and a coupe on D's. Mom's is tripping, but she really don't know. All I'm thinking, if she ain't on the county, don't know. Before my mama fuck with the county again, I'd rather take the risk of doing 5 to 10. I'm not taking a check, I'm straight making a check. So now we deserve to get what we wanna get. I got my mama up out of there, because y'all motherfuckers just don't care. You really wanna know why I so scum? Because my mama to me comes number one. Now you sucker motherfuckers don't understand, but to my mama, I'm her real Black Superman.
That's